Hello there, everyone. It's Tania Gabrielle, Wealth Astro-Numerologist. Welcome to Star Codes, where today we're going to look at the wonderful Aries new moon. Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, and of course the new moon being about new beginnings. So this is really the beginning of the year in so many ways, so much exciting energy. And it follows on the heels of a very fortunate Libra full moon that happened March 28th. And now on April 12th, Universal Time, we have an incredibly fortunate Aries new moon. So lovely. So it happens April 12th, 3:31 a.m. Universal Time, Greenwich, England. And it will be April 12th, east of England. So all of Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa, all experiencing this new moon on April 12th. And then in the Americas, it'll be April 11th, 10:31 p.m. Eastern Time in New York and 7:31 p.m. Pacific Time, LA. And of course, you don't need to be an Aries to benefit from this forecast because you have Aries somewhere in your astrology birth blueprint. And so that means this new moon, just like every lunation, happens in one of your houses. So it impacts you in some way. Now, new moons are new beginnings. Aries is the first sign, lots of beautiful energy. But the exciting part of this particular new moon is that Mars, the ruler of Aries, is creating a gorgeous trine to Jupiter, the expansive, fortunate planet. And so this is really heightening the positivity of this new moon. And not only that, Jupiter will be in a fortunate sextile, which is 60 degrees, to the sun and moon and Venus. There's a triple conjunction of Venus with the new moon. And this is just amazing because Venus and Jupiter are both the benefics in astrology. So to have two wonderful connections, one with Mars, the ruler of this new moon, and the other with the sun, moon, and Venus, is just amazing. So then Pluto also creates a square to the sun and moon and to Venus. In fact, the square to Venus is exact during this new moon, and that really intensifies things and empowers the energy. Plus, the new moon happens at 22 degrees, which is a master number, and it represents the architect of peace. So this is very much about stabilizing energy, securing good fortune that's in the forecast, and bringing a sense of overall calmness into our lives. So Aries is a go for it energy. It is very much about a direction, creating a direction, not being held back energetically. And so in a bit, we're going to look at what that means, setting a direction consciously as opposed to willfully, having some kind of plan that is ego driven. So that is the shadow side of Aries. So we want to focus on having conscious directions while trusting and surrendering to the divine flow. So this is a really big topic because of the flowing nature of this Aries new moon. There's so much growth that can happen on that level. So Aries also is very good for breaking negative habits, not giving your power away, setting yourself free so you can feel this sense of renewal and birth. And it's great energy for initiating something new. Now, with the moon and sun conjunct Venus, we are being filled with love, pleasure, calmness, beauty, financial flow, upliftment, a desire for affection, caring, relaxation. And it is just a gorgeous way to celebrate how pleasure and beauty and joy are integral to living a life of ease and flow, signified by the number 22 degrees. So you're incredibly creative around this new moon, and your imagination is very heightened. I mean, Venus and Sun together is very much about decorating your home with beautiful art and having just love and affection and just having gorgeousness in your life and feeling that inner beauty, right? So the moon and sun and Venus are also square to Pluto. And Pluto is very much about your intuition, trusting your intuition so that you are bringing into your awareness those things that were unconscious before and are now being made conscious to set you free. So there's a lot of emotional excitement when the moon is square Pluto. So be aware that you don't want to get into drama, and instead you want to be so conscious and self-aware that there is lightness and darkness. There is an understanding of energy. You don't have to be pulled into the duality, but you feel these heightened emotions and you stay calm. You just observe them. This transit brings incredible discoveries. And the more you give yourself over to the divine, the more you surrender to Source, to God, the more you allow relaxation to guide you as opposed to this intense willfulness, the easier and the more beneficial this whole period is going to be, because this is a very intense square and you can channel it into conscious direction, right? So reaping rewards because your drive to understand what is right is merged with your surrender to the divine flow, the trust in the divine flow. So very important to breathe, also to rest, to let go of bygones. Pluto always wants you to purge, and to stay present with all the changes that are around you in your life. Then we have the moon and sun and Venus sextile to Jupiter, and that's just an awesome feeling. It's just, you feel good. You have advantages in your life. Recognition comes your way. You're open to miracles. It's good for negotiation. It's wonderful for so many things. You just feel optimistic and happy. You have positive flow in your thoughts and your goals are reached easily. And you have a lot of wonderful ideas that just flow, and others who support you, and the universe, just being there for you. Really, there's a palpable sense of gratitude and fortune. Now, Venus square Pluto is exact during this lunation, new moon in Aries. And this will really impact your intimate relationships as well, if you are in a romantic relationship or any very, very close relationship, because you're going to look at any issues regarding control. If there's tension, it needs to be dissolved, because that's what Pluto does. And if you feel like you're not being valued in any way, it's something you need to look at too and observe whether you really feel you are loved for who you are or whether there is an ulterior motive. Now, if you're in a healthy relationship, the attraction sensually, sexually between the two of you is going to be really intense and wonderful. And if you happen to connect with someone and dating someone during this time, there can be a sense of instant attraction as well. So you want to dive into this creativity and your ability to seek deeper truths and uncover secrets. You have tremendous intuitive powers during this time. So Mars is trine Jupiter as well. Mars, the ruler of Aries, and that gives you an increased desire to just go for it, and you just feel unstoppable. So any project that you begin now has a greater success rate. So focus on your intentions, on what brings you joy, because financial flow is really enhanced if you are engaged in a joyful way. And you want to take initiative too, because you will benefit from wonderful opportunities that this transit brings. You can experience results that are just miraculous at this time, everywhere in your life, professionally, relationships, health, spirituality, inner peace, your environment, stepping up as a leader, right? This is all covered during this time. So really amazing stuff. Now, Aries and Mars, of course, are very resolute. There's a direction and a strong resolve to move ahead, especially when you align with the divine and not the ego, which, there's always that temptation, like, I want to do it my way or the highway, right? We all know about that. But if you do that, if you plead to the divine, to God, to deliver what you want and try to impose your will at the expense of the divine flow, instead of asking the divine what it really wants for you, right? Because there's this greater wisdom that is so beyond our conception to comprehend. Surrendering to that divine flow is a very different approach. So you assume that getting what you want is the goal regardless of what is best for you or for everyone else's highest good. And surrendering to the divine helps you play a part in the whole, being there for your highest good and everyone else's. And so this is where this original spark of the Mars Aries energy is recognized as a vehicle or an instrument for the whole, rather than a separate entity that's pitted against the divine flow. So you surrender your own egoic will to the divine will because you recognize that what seems like your will actually belongs to the ego. And you recognize that, and you recognize it can't be trusted and it's not a worthy guide. So that's the shadow side of Aries and Mars, right? What makes this kind of visualization or prayer so powerful, asking the divine to help you play a part for the good of the whole, is the overall assumption that you are not your ego. You are not your thoughts. You are not your mind. So by affirming your allegiance to the divine rather than the ego, my will, you are affirming your desire to be aligned with the divine. And so when you ask for that or pray for that, the divine God, essence, source responds and becomes more obviously present and active in your life. And so the ultimate expression of the divine in your life is that you will eventually come to know yourself as that very divine spark. And that is really the awakening, the Aries awakening, is that spark of energy, that light. Aries is a fire sign, that light that initiates courage and direction is literally completely surrendered to the divine flow. So acknowledging that you want to be aligned with the divine flow instead of the ego is very, very important. Now, another way to propel this Aries-Mars energy, new beginnings energy forward with ease is to actually listen, because the divine speaks in unusual ways. It rarely speaks actually through words. You mostly hear it through your intuition, which comes through your body, senses in the body, and through your mind. So when intuition speaks through your body, something is just like a knowing. I'm sure you've experienced this. You don't know how you know something. You just know it. And this kind of knowing is usually accompanied by a feeling of rightness in your body. It's like this solid sense of yes or no, right? Depending on what it is. And no thoughts are needed for this kind of body awareness knowing, right? The answer just arose from nowhere, and it's intuitive, and it's very different from intuition that comes through the mind. There is a similar sense of knowing that is not preceded by thoughts, right? But it doesn't occur in the body so much, but it comes to you more like an idea that you get. And it's like an aha moment. And it's info that's downloaded in your brain, and you just know that it is right. So this is intuition that then gets translated into the mind, as opposed to your thought stream creating something for you. And usually you'll try putting this knowing into words, but intuition that comes into the mind is more symbolic. So it's more a feeling. It comes in pictures or it contains a lot of information that needs to be interpreted. And so the mind can't always translate intuition without distorting some of it. And the same goes for the intuition, by the way, that comes through the body, because it's very condensed information. It's divine information. So it's very, very powerful and sometimes very jam-packed. But whether it comes through the body or the mind, it just feels right. And that is the key. It rings true. It makes sense. You trust it. You just know it is the answer. You feel excited. You feel happy. You feel relief. And you feel at peace. You are no longer struggling for a solution, but you're resting from the struggle to find the answer because you just know. And it feels like a big aha moment. Okay, so now let's contrast that to the experience of knowing something with the egoic mind. It feels just the opposite because the egoic mind is rarely convinced, rarely sure about a decision. And it's easily swayed by others. It is also easily confused by considering various viewpoints. And this is because the ego bases decisions on conflicting information, sometimes contradictory information. And because the ego wants contradictory things, because the ego wants it all, which is contradictory. So with nearly every decision about which direction to go, the ego really, really struggles. And the egoic mind causes you to feel confused, unhappy, uncomfortable, not at ease at all. It wants a solution, but it can't find one, and that causes a lot of suffering. And part of the reason is that there's a right time for every solution or every answer, and the mind doesn't know. And part of the reason is that there's a right time for every solution and every answer. But the egoic mind doesn't want to wait for a solution or answer. It doesn't want that natural process to happen because the egoic mind wants it now, right? So that speaks, of course, to Aries' shadow side, Mars' shadow side of impatience and impulsiveness. And when a solution does arise, it comes from the intuition, and that's when there's relief, right? The mind that's been struggling all this time for an answer. Unfortunately, sometimes the solution or answer comes late because the mind has already made a decision just to ease its confusion and discomfort. And in this way, the mind can lead you down a path, the egoic mind, that isn't the best for you because of the impatience, right? Now, we've all experienced that, and that's how we learn. So when this happens, Source does its best to work on other feedback. So the way it may do this is deliver messages in other ways. One of those ways is through others. So your divine collaborates with the divine in others to create a plan that works for everyone's highest good. And so the divine within you asks the divine within others to give you the messages, the information, the data, the advice, the support, the comfort, the love, the encouragement you need to unfold the divine plan. So getting advice and info from others is generally more acceptable to the egoic mind, but it seems more credible and trustworthy to the mind than listening just to intuition. And so one sign that you're receiving this kind of guidance from the divine through another person is that you feel really good afterwards, after speaking to them, and often inspired to take action. But if there is an exchange of egos between you and another, you are left feeling confused, defensive, not so good, or unchanged, right? There's nothing that happened. So the egoic mind is not in a position to be able to guide your life, and yet it is what most people use to guide their life, right? So the divine can also speak through events, and we've all experienced that, where sometimes the divine creates an event to make you question things and change your direction. And so this happens when things don't go smoothly. Maybe the situation is not aligned with the divine, and you realize you have to surrender. So you can use the Aries energy to really focus on this, because the highest expression of Aries and Mars is to listen, observe, receive, and act. And by being receptive rather than feeling like a victim of circumstances, it will shift your consciousness, and it will allow you to receive the insight that you need to move the energy in a different way. So, of course, doing this repeatedly will help give you clarity, and often repetition is very much needed. So the divine does need time to bring you these opportunities, these people, this info that will help you move in that new direction. And sometimes without these, you will reject intuitive suggestions because they seem too abstract or implausible. So how do you know when the divine is stepping in to help you live a life of ease, especially when you're making a decision and choosing a new direction? There are numerous pointers, several people, a book, a TV program, a movie, an article, a close friend who's actually doing that very thing you are considering. You dream about it. You get excited about it when you think about it. Opportunities move you in that direction. You get an offer you can't refuse, and you get encouragement, you get support. And there's just such an ease in moving in that direction. No other opportunities are presenting themselves. No one is discouraging you. Nothing is blocking you. And so there's no reason to move forward. And if the direction you're moving towards does not have obvious pointers or opportunities or support and ease, it may not be the right direction for you. And it doesn't mean that you don't sometimes have difficulties and challenges. It doesn't mean that at all, because life can be difficult at times. That's how we grow. And sometimes you need persistence to achieve your divinely destined goals, right? So if the direction is aligned with Source, you will have the strength and motivation and inspiration and courage and assistance to overcome those challenges. If it is not aligned with Source and you have challenges, you will actually feel listless, dejected. You will not have the inspiration, the motivation, the courage to continue, or the assistance from others that you need to succeed. So whether your direction is the most positive one for you or not, it's revealed by your feelings about it. The right direction feels right no matter what difficulties you encounter. The wrong direction feels unfulfilling no matter what degree of success you have. And there is the paradox, as always, right? So that is really the Aries awakening, is to surrender to inspiration, to intuition, and then act on it. And this is really the key to living a happy life. The divine is there for you at all times, and there's so much for you to explore in this life, and to just understand that your intuition is a standalone energy source. It stands apart from the mind, right? We need the mind to translate, but not to think through our solutions, right? That is really not a good way to approach a new direction. So remember that when an intuition comes through the mind, we talked about the body and the mind earlier, there is just a knowing, and it is not preceded by thinking. Okay, so it's very beautiful when you receive these gorgeous downloads, either viscerally through your body or through a thought that comes in that comes from nowhere, right? That this is really an amazing opportunity to live a life with ease, and to just know that sometimes when you translate the intuition that you receive, it can be distorted. So just keep that in mind. So here we are at the beginning of the astrological year. It is such an important time for us to trust, to surrender. Remember that square with Pluto, and it's exact to Venus. Venus covering love and abundance and joy and pleasure and creativity. So we need to surrender. We really need to release. And Pluto also governs our intuition. So this is such a wonderful reminder about how joy emerges from within you naturally when you trust in Source, when you trust in the divine. So have a magnificent Aries new moon, and be sure to know your own star code as well. Your soul code is revealed in your birthday, your birth certificate name, and your astrology birth chart. And I've created a free masterclass for you at starcodeclass.com, where you can discover your whole code. There's even a handout to help you through the masterclass. And it's just a wonderful way to get to know yourself at soul level and to appreciate others and have compassion for them. So go to starcodeclass.com. Have a wonderful new moon, and I'll see you in next week's Star Codes podcast.